Ministers.
Thank you, Lascan Corla, and I welcome the opportunity to contribute to the debate this evening on the private member's motion on water charging. The one thing I suppose about this whole debate around water charging and the need or otherwise to have a water tax introduced, and it's one thing that always interests me when you hear people say, "Oh, well, you have to pay for water usage. You know, we can't continue to have free water in this country." We never had free water in this country. The 1.2 billion euros that water costs to produce across the country has been paid for all along by the taxation that has been raised centrally in this state. So there has never ever been free water in the country. There has never been free water at all. If you taxed your car, you you paid for your water. But are we getting a reduction in car tax because of the fact that you've introduced the water tax? No, we're not. What you're actually doing is introducing a water tax to allow this government to pay the 9 billion euros in interest payments that are on the unjustified bank debt that every one of us has to carry as a burden. So there is no such thing as free water, and that's true because we've been paying for it already. And now we'll be paying on the double for it because of the introduction of your water charges. And over the last 3 weeks or so, we've been treated to the charade of the Labour Party throwing its toys out of the pram in Cabinet and wanting to get what they say is benefits for people who can't afford water, and this whole rigmarole and that has arrived today at this agreement in relation to what water charging will be. But what do we see out of this agreement? That the average charge per house for water in 2015, when the charging is introduced, will actually be the same as it was 4 weeks ago. 240 euros per house. In fact, I think it went up by €2 maybe, because it was 238 euros was the first figures that I had seen. So there actually hasn't been any change. The average cost of water per house is still going to be 240 euros. All you have done is given a small consideration to people who have to use extra water because of illness. For people who can't afford to pay water charges, they have the privilege of being able to go to the community welfare officer and ask for some discretion there to be allowed to contribute to the cost of the water bills. The same thing is already in place for people with their ESB bills and other utility bills, and it's extremely difficult for them to get any support from the community welfare officer in relation to those utility bills. So it will be just as difficult for somebody to get support in relation to water charging and water bills in the future. So there is actually no concession there to people who will have difficulty paying. There is nothing in this scheme for them. And the interesting thing about it then is you make much play of the fact that there's going to be 30,000 litres of free water per household across the country. And I heard the Minister say earlier on about how generous this allocation is. Well, it's interesting when you look at the existing commercial customers across the country, commercial customers who have a domestic element in their billing process. Their free allowance at the moment is 227,000 litres of water. So the people who are paying water charges already at the moment, the commercial customers with a domestic element, are going to see their free allowance reduced by 7.5 times. If you take a couple who are living in a rural Ireland offering a B&B that are metered now at the moment from the county councils, they will actually see their free allowance reduced from 227,000 litres down to 30,000 litres. And this is the extremely generous free allowance that you've implemented. It actually means that those people will actually pay more for their water supply now in 2015 than they have been in this year. And that's the generous allowance that this government says that they've implemented. And much has been made by the IPEC and the other employers' bodies and other business interests about how commercial water charges will have to reduce because Irish water has come into play. But people with a commercial element on their water bills and who actually live over the shop or live over the pub or live over the post office or operate a small B&B in rural Ireland, they'll see their water charges significantly increased because of this. And it's because you have wiped out the free allowance that is already there. Why wasn't that free allowance used as a model to deliver the free allowance across the country? And then if you look at the average charge of water at €240 for an average household. Irish Water's own figures today that they circulated on a frequently asked questions about water charging. That means that we're going to have a unit price of probably somewhere in the region of about €2.30 per cubic metre.
Thank you, Deputy.
€2.25 per cubic metre, and that's the unit price, and that's the price that CAR will come out with in the coming months.